In 1220, the city of Urgench was one of the greatest trading centers in Central Asia. Home to over 100,000 people, it boasted magnificent mosques, bustling markets, and walls that had never been breached. 6 months later, it was a wasteland where not a single living soul remained. This wasn't warfare as we know it. This was systematic annihilation. And Genghis Khan had a very specific reason for what he did. When most people think of medieval conquest, they imagine armies clashing, cities changing hands, maybe some looting. But Genghis Khan operated by completely different rules. He had developed what historians now call terror as strategy, a calculated system of psychological warfare that made resistance seem not just futile, but absolutely catastrophic. Here's how it worked. When the Mongol army approached a city, they would send envoys with a simple message: submit immediately, keep your local leaders, pay tribute, and your city continues to exist exactly as it always has. Resist us, and we will erase you from history. Most people thought this was typical conqueror bluffing. They were catastrophically wrong. Genghis Khan had created the most methodical destruction machine in human history. When a city chose to resist, the Mongols would implement what they called the complete work. This wasn't random violence, it was systematic elimination following precise protocols. First came the siege. The Mongols would surround the city completely, cutting off all supply lines. But here's what made them different. They would force captured civilians from previous conquests to build their siege equipment and fill in the moats. Imagine watching your neighbors from nearby towns being forced to construct the very machines that would destroy your home. The Mongols had adopted Chinese siege technology, Persian engineering techniques, and Arab architectural knowledge. They knew exactly how to breach any wall, how to undermine any fortification. Resistance wasn't brave, it was mathematically impossible. Let's return to Urgench because what happened there became the template for every resistant city afterward. The siege lasted 6 months, but when the walls finally fell, the real horror began. Genghis Khan had given specific orders. Every living thing in the city was to be killed. Not just the soldiers, not just the leaders, everyone. Every man, woman, child and animal, even the cats and dogs. But it was the method that made it truly terrifying. The Mongols divided their army into units, and each unit was assigned a specific district of the city. They went house by house, building by building. Families were dragged into the streets and executed systematically. The Mongols kept meticulous records. They wanted to ensure that no one escaped. Contemporary chroniclers wrote that the killing took 3 days. When it was finished, Mongol engineers diverted the nearby river to flow through the city, washing away the blood and bodies. Then they destroyed every building, every wall, every structure. Finally, they salted the earth so nothing would grow there again. Where Urgench once stood, there was nothing but empty land. A city of 100,000 people had been completely erased from existence. But here's what made Genghis Khan's strategy brilliant. He made sure everyone knew exactly what happened to Urgench. He wanted the story to spread. He wanted every city ahead of his army's path to hear the details. Because the goal was never to destroy every city. That would be economically pointless. The goal was to destroy one city so completely, so horrifyingly, that every other city would surrender immediately rather than face the same fate. It was psychological warfare on a continental scale. The destruction of Urgench saved Genghis Khan from having to besiege dozens of other cities. Word traveled faster than his army, and by the time the Mongols appeared on the horizon, city gates would open and surrender flags would be flying. But sometimes, cities couldn't surrender fast enough. In 1240, the Mongols under Batu Khan reached Kiev, the golden jewel of Eastern Europe. The city's leaders wanted to surrender immediately. They had heard what happened to resistant cities, but Kiev's prince decided to make a stand. Giovanni da Pian del Carpine, a papal envoy who traveled through the region 6 years later, wrote that he could still see mountains of bones surrounding where Kiev once stood. He counted the skulls and estimated that 300,000 people had lived there. When the Mongols finished, he found fewer than 200 houses still standing. The Mongols had perfected their system by then. They didn't just kill the population, they systematically dismantled the city's culture. Libraries were burned, churches demolished, artisans executed. They wanted to ensure that Kiev's knowledge, traditions and skills died with its people. What made this strategy so effective was its efficiency. After the destruction of just a few cities, entire regions would surrender without a fight. The Mongols could conquer vast territories with minimal casualties to their own forces. Contemporary sources describe caravans of refugees fleeing ahead of the Mongol army, carrying stories of complete annihilation. These refugees became unwitting agents of Mongol psychological warfare, spreading terror faster than horses could travel. City after city chose submission over extinction. The Mongols would ride up to massive fortified cities and find the gates already open, the leaders already kneeling in surrender. This allowed them to preserve their strength for the few cities that still chose to resist, which they would then destroy with EV.